this an emergency trade? For us, it is. Oh, you bet. It's the time of season. I'm Tass Mellis. With me, it's the man in the middle, Trey Kirby.
Ayo.
Ayo. That's an AO in the question form.
A little bit of a question, because, this is titled an emergency podcast.
Yes.
But, Tass, this is more like an urgent podcast. To me, the difference between going to the emergency room or going to urgent care, like, we can't really wait till Thursday on this one, but it also isn't worth firing up everything for an emergency podcast, nor making a whole day of it. So this is an urgent podcast as far as I'm concerned, and it might go down in history as our shortest standalone episode. I don't know how many thoughts you have on Jordan Poole and CJ McCollum, but I can't wait to hear.
It's a great description of what this is. Urgent, because it's a trade in a bad way, a discussion in a bad way. So it's, urgent / emergency. I could see this trade being in an ER for sure, because I'm a little confused as to what this is. So let's break it down. The big names, Jordan Poole going to New Orleans, along with Saddiq Bey and a number 40 pick in this draft. Going the other way, CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and a future second-round pick. So no monstrous names that are really going to change what these two teams are next year. But if they do change anything, Trey, it's probably in a negative way. So I'll let you start. Give me your thoughts on these two teams exchanging mainly Poole for McCollum.
Yeah, kind of trading very similar players, just of different ages. I guess start from it on the Washington side. CJ McCollum has come closer to making an all-star team, I think, than Jordan Poole, though Poole does have a championship. I think we're seeing with the Wizards, with this trade, with Chris Middleton trade during the middle of last season, with bringing in Marcus Smart the middle of last season, the same way they brought in Brogdon at the beginning of the year. I think what we're seeing in Washington is veteranizing, right? They're bringing in these good veteran guys. Chris Middleton is a winner. Marcus Smart is a gritty defensive player. CJ McCollum is a great locker room guy to get around and an absolute bucket as well. Even Kelly Olynyk kind of fits the mold of a guy that their youngsters can really learn from. Furthermore, these contracts are all lining up nicely for the end of the 25-26 season. So we're talking about next year. The Wizards are going to have a ton of cap space. I think Fred Katz was projecting something like $100+ million in cap space. They have very few deals on the books after this coming season. So this is pretty similar to that. For the Wizards, they're getting off Jordan Poole's contract 1 year early, getting a similar style player in CJ McCollum, a guy who can score without the ball and who thrives with the ball. Surely, like with Middleton, like with Marcus Smart, they've got to be hoping that these guys are able to recoup some value, maybe at the trade deadline, and bring in some more assets for trades and future stuff for the Wizards. I assume that's the thinking here, because it seems like a lateral move if we're talking about CJ McCollum and Jordan Poole. I don't know, 34 years at the beginning of next season for CJ, and 26 years old only for Jordan Poole. So definitely the Wizards are getting a little bit older. They've been at the bottom of the Eastern Conference for a few seasons now. They want to at least start putting the building blocks of becoming a real team going forward. So I understand the move from their part. CJ McCollum, definitely a more steady veteran presence than Jordan Poole. Though once we get into the New Orleans side of things, you're going to be disappointed, because I'm on Jordan Poole Island, buddy.
Yeah, and I guess that's why a lot of people here in the stream team are asking, what are the Wizards doing? In that they're getting older, as you said, and getting rid of the guy who's definitely got, if you're going to talk about potential, the more potential to have a long NBA career in Jordan Poole and just to have more years, because he's way younger. That being said, I created a banner for this show that says, what are the Pelicans doing? And there it is, because I'm confused. Obviously, for me, the Wizards are just getting rid of Jordan Poole. Sunk cost, get out of here. They had a 2-year experiment. It did not go well. And I just find it difficult for the Pelicans to really think that this is going to help their locker room, help who they are. I again, more potential, sure, but really, you're taking on a longer deal, arguably a worse player. I know Jordan Poole is extremely talented, but CJ McCollum at least got it done. I'm not sure. I think it's a longer deal, and Jordan Poole just has not had a good 2 years, and so that's the confusing part for me. It was a short experiment, and for them to say, the Wizards to say, this guy's getting paid, around 31 and $34 million. That's not a lot in today's NBA, guaranteed money. And for them to say, no, thank you, that means they are done with the Jordan Poole experiment completely. And so that's just a terrible sign. It's a terrible sign for the Pelicans, because I just don't think that this was a smart move by their new front office, saying we're giving a shot on Jordan Poole to change who we are, really. I mean, last year, a ton of injuries. They won actually 49 games the year before that. But do they think they're just going to turn this thing around with Poole and Saddiq Bey, who now their front office, Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver? I understand why Troy Weaver is doing this. He loves Saddiq Bey.
Did he draft Saddiq Bey? He might have.
He did.
Yeah.
He drafted him in here. There is a Troy Weaver Saddiq Bey loop here. Troy Weaver got him in Detroit. Then he traded him to Atlanta. Then he was a senior advisor in Washington. He signed him in Washington, helped out there, and now is GM of the Pelicans. Come on back, baby. So it's a wild loop. I think those two guys, Poole and Saddiq Bey, just aren't going to add a ton. I was here in Atlanta. I know you were, Trey, to watch Saddiq Bey, who they gave up 5 second-round picks for, and he really just is unable to stay in front of anybody defensively. He's just lost on that end. And so we're going to see a lot of that in New Orleans. He's not going to help out there. And so I just think this is a risk that you're I guess you're taking because you think you can turn Jordan Poole around. I really don't get what the idea is. Wouldn't you rather have the freedom of 1 year and 1 year to be able to say, we got some cap space? Now they have to take on the $31 and $34 million in 2 years, along with 2 years of Saddiq Bey, which is way cheaper. It's tiny. It's like 6.5 and $7 million, instead of an expiring CJ McCollum and an expiring Kelly Olynyk at 13. So that's $43 million that you could have expiring. But instead, here we go. We're going to Jordan Poole era, and that's kind of confusing to me. But I could be deemed an idiot, because Jordan Poole could relive, I suppose, what he did in a better environment with Golden State. But I just don't see that happening in New Orleans, where they're already amidst all these problems. It doesn't seem like they got it together. So it doesn't seem like Jordan Poole is going to come fix it.
I don't think cap space means a lot for the Pelicans. They're not a free agency destination, and they've got more problems to figure out than what free agents they're bringing in. Are they keeping Zion Williamson? It's 1 extra year of contract, and for the Wizards, they value the cap space. I don't know that they're going to sign anybody either, or just maybe get used for leverage. Personally, I'm taking Jordan Poole over CJ McCollum at this point in their career. He's 8 years younger. Poole is coming off a season where he had career highs in points, assists, steals, 3-point percentage. I'm not saying he's a great veteran leader, but he wasn't a joke this season.
Career high and losses.
But, I mean, but how often are the Pelicans actually doing anything in the Western Conference with CJ McCollum leading the way? This guy is always hurt, and he has taken a step back. He's at the end of his career, where at least Poole, maybe he can get a little bit of rehabilitation down in New Orleans. I do not love the fit with DeJounte Murray and Zion Williamson. Saddiq Bey doesn't really factor into things for me. He's like at best a third wing for this Pelicans team, but I don't know. I don't mind rolling the dice on Poole. I still think he's a talented player. There are not a lot of us here on Poole Island, but I like the way he plays with the ball. I think he's a good shooter off the ball as well. 1 extra year of contract for sure. That's going to be interesting for the Pelicans, but I don't know. I thought Poole was actually pretty decent for the Wizards last season, even though the Wizards didn't do literally anything in the Eastern Conference, literally the worst team. But I like the way he plays. I like the highlights for Jordan Poole. He's a big cat guy, so I think that's kind of nice as well. This, to me, people were saying it on Twitter, it felt like everybody else was making trades. So these teams are like, that seems pretty cool. Let's get in on the trade game. And maybe they were just getting bored. I don't know. But I think it's I wouldn't call it a win-win or a lose-lose, kind of a what for both teams. But if you're talking player for player, give me Poole over CJ McCollum.
That's, I think, what a lot of people are feeling too. This guy obviously can drop 40 and no one would be surprised. Saddiq Bey has dropped 50 in this league.
True.
And that was a special day. It's more, I think, a long-term view that the Pelicans should be taking. Dumars, Weaver come into this front office and they make the choice to go with these guys who have 2 years guaranteed, rather than being able to see what they've got this year and be able to trade these expiring deals and then move on next year as they move on from CJ McCollum, who is a great locker room guy, and would move on from Kelly Olynyk. Again, a great locker room guy who they've traded for Poole and Bey, who are not. In general, I mean, I am a Jordan Poole fan. I wanted to see what he did in Washington. Came off the bench for a while for Brian Keefe, and things were all right in year number 1. In year number 2, he obviously scored and did those things, but it just seemed like the chemistry that he and Kyle Kuzma to start the season, and the young guys who came in obviously did fairly well, but they got rid of Kuzma, I believe, because things were tending to fall apart there a little bit, and I think that's why the Wizards said, we're ready to move on from the Poole era. And I said Warriors because I was thinking of what the Warriors had to attach to Poole to get him to Washington, and they attached a first-round pick. So Washington's got to be pretty excited that all they had to attach was a 40th pick to get him to New Orleans. I'm interested to see what he can do there, but I am a little bit, not worried. Worried is the wrong word. I mean, I will be watching it as a spectator just to see how those guys in the locker room get along. Are they going to be able to jive together? That's something to me I do not expect in New Orleans.
Who's the leader for the Pelicans?
It's a great question. Probably the guy who doesn't play, Zion, I guess.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that their main guy is unreliable at this point. Even DeJounte Murray was out of the lineup for the majority of last season, broke his hand in game 1 against the Bulls, came back and got hurt once again. So yeah, maybe if Poole is the number 1 guy, the number 1 veteran there, it's not going perfectly, but if he's the 3rd guy, I don't think it's all that bad. And who knows, if he's able to steady his game, I think this could end up being decent for New Orleans to turn CJ McCollum, an expiring contract. You're not getting anything better for CJ McCollum at this point in his career. He's got such a big deal. There's not a lot of players that match up to him salary-wise. I don't think anybody's going to trade a first-round pick for him. I might be proven wrong at the deadline, because surely the Wizards would trade him in the future if somebody is going to give up a first-round pick at the trade deadline. But I kind of think this is just odd for both teams. I mean, CJ McCollum to Jordan Poole, there's just such similar guys, like you don't want them to be your number 1 ball handler, but they can be in a pinch if some guys are out of the lineup. You don't necessarily want them to be your leading scorer, but there are going to be nights when either of them are leading scorers. And it's just weird. I think maybe the biggest, the biggest secondary piece is Kelly Olynyk. The shooting is going to probably help the Wizards, though. Kelly Olynyk has been traded to a lot of different teams, and everybody's always like, oh, that shooting is going to help. And guess what? It never really helps that much. The guy's a backup big man, but he can help on the inside. The Wizards have ball handlers already in Middleton, Bub Carrington, Marcus Smart. So I don't necessarily know how CJ fits in there, but it was the same with Jordan Poole. How does he fit in there? I don't know. Just interesting stuff. Sometimes you just got to trade guards.
Yeah. And you trade a guard here in CJ McCollum, who's, I think, the vice president of the NBA PA, along with Kelly Olynyk, as you said, who's very old, and he can pass the ball, and he'll do that for all the young guys in Washington. But unfortunately, he's kind of slow on the defensive end. So he'll be a guy really, a poor man's Isaiah Hartenstein, I suppose, who just will be giving it everywhere and just getting the young guys involved. I think I would just rather take that 1-year experiment of those 2 guys versus the 2-year experiment of what they have in New Orleans in guys who are injured, plus a Poole experiment in a very, very tough Western Conference. So I'm sure Dumars and Weaver are saying, this guy's talented. we can get him in here. Maybe we can change it up. But there's too many working parts. There's too many variables in that New Orleans locker room to be excited about. So I'm impressed that we got to 15 minutes or so. I think it's pretty equivalent to what we did when Cam Reddish was traded. I think. I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was an emergency podcast. Cam Reddish, who was he even traded for?
He was traded
to Knicks.
To Knicks, yeah. It was a first round pick. I think it was Charlotte's first round pick that the Knicks had that went to Atlanta. I think, and that's it. There was no other guys to talk about.
There wasn't even another guy in the trade, and we did an emergency podcast for that. Must have been a slow trade season.
Was there a Kevin Knox involved?
Maybe
a Kevin Knox involved. So I'm impressed. We got to 15 minutes. Is there a chance that
Tassie?
Is there one last thing? Is there a chance that either one of these teams sniffs a play-in? I mean, you'd probably think.
New Orleans is a lot closer than Washington is. New Orleans has a guy who can be a top 5 player in the NBA if he's healthy and motivated every single night. Zion is unstoppable when he plays, and he's got shooting outside of him with Poole and all the different wings they have in Trey Murphy, in Herb Jones, assuming these guys both stick around, though they've been in trade talks. But New Orleans is a lot closer to making any sort of postseason appearance than the Wizards are. The Wizards won 18 games last year, and that was an improvement on 15 wins.
Yeah, but it's the East, baby. They won 15.
It's the East, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. They won 15 2 years ago. And now CJ McCollum could be bouncing this team up even higher than what they did last year, which was 18.
Yeah, I think they could win. I think right now the Wizards could win up to 23 games. Pretty exciting times in Washington. It does kind of indicate to me maybe they're looking at Ace Bailey, just somebody to come in and take a whole bunch of shots. He's looking for kind of like a star-making place where there's not a lot of names in front of him who are going to be getting all the touches. CJ's a high-usage guy, but he is more of a sidekick kind of player than Poole sometimes wants to be the lead dog for sure. So maybe this means they're looking at Ace Bailey going forward. I don't know. To me, this is all table setting for the Wizards on their draft picks. And then certainly going into the trade deadline, they'll be active with all these vets who might have more value to contending teams. And then, of course, they're going to be very active in the free agency market in 2026.
A quick circle back. It was Kevin Knox with a first-round pick for Cam Reddish and Solomon Hill and a second-round pick. Now, that first-round pick, I don't think it conveyed at all because it was conditional. So, really, it was Kevin Knox for Cam Reddish, essentially. Thanks, Ash, for the heads up here. And I guess there was guys involved that we talked about. We probably talked about Solomon Hill. He started playoff games. So
he hurt LeBron at one point in time.
Good callback. Great callback. All right. We will likely be back Thursday in the studio to talk about the first night of the draft, barring any other emergency podcasts which are required like this one. But for now, Clipper Bros.
You heard it here first. Have a great time. Turn up. Love you guys. Awesome.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, urgent podcasts are the new emergency podcasts.
They're so hot right now. Talk to you guys soon.